All right, this is Maxie Collier. Welcome to Super Live Streams. This is our quick interview with filmmaker, director, writer Darryl Wharton, the producer of Detention. What up, D? So I am so thrilled. Look at this technology that we're using for this shit right here, man. Come on, we've got HD streams, real-time chroma key. You're in Japan. I'm in Las Vegas. And we're over here sharing your movie on me and Shatar's new channel.
Man, the times have changed.
If I say Capitol Children's Museum, what does that make you think of?
Man, the Capitol Children's Museum was in DC, where did the first edit of Detention. And it was all on tape.
And not only that, it was. Why were we at the Capitol Children's Museum edited in the first place?
Because we were broke. We had a friend, Chris Butler, who worked over there. And he was like, well, if you guys need some editing, come on over. And, I was like, all right, drove over to DC, brought the tapes, popped them in, did those first cuts.
Yeah.
That was before we wrote on Gershon as an editor, to actually edit.
Yep.
But it was that. But that edit showed us we had a movie.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing about that edit. That first cut was rough, but it showed us like, okay, there is a movie here. There is a film here. There's something here. There's a story that's being told.
Unlike other filmmakers at the time, it was just a few months after the production. Think about how long post-production was for films like Be More Hacks.
Yeah.
But let's take it back. So let's take it back real quick, Darryl. Us meeting.
Mm-hmm. At BET.
At BET, when Ronald Mills came over on Teen Summit and introduced us and said, hey, here's a filmmaker. Y'all both live in Baltimore and you need to know each other. And I think that was like, 92 maybe? Maybe,
yeah. And, it's like, was that around the time when, was that for the Halle Berry, Tommy Davidson movie around that time?
Were you at Teen Summit when we did the Strictly Business? I was there. Okay. Wow. I have pictures from that day. That's crazy.
That's when I met Halle Berry.
That is amazing. And I was stage managing that day. We both knew that we wanted to be filmmakers. Can you tell folks a little bit about your background? What led you?
I started, after coming out of university with a degree in history, even though I took every film and production screenwriting course the school had. And when I came back to Baltimore, I just started trying to find work in production and started working as a PA in Baltimore. And the first movie I worked on in Baltimore was David Mamet's Homicide. And I can tell you that one of the reasons I actually landed that gig is because I went to Ithaca College, and the producer Michael Hausman went to Cornell. And Cornell and Ithaca, Cornell is in Ithaca, New York. So when he saw Ithaca College on my resume, he was like, we need to call this guy in. And I went to that office. I was wearing a tie. I was green. I was production green. And we sat and we had a chat. And then, about a month later, I was working on the set of Homicide. And everything I learned in film school, I had to unlearn, because learning stuff on a professional set is a whole nother level of stuff. Each of those films I worked on, I learned something. Each of those directors I worked with, I learned something. Mm-hmm. But I also talked to the producers. I talked to the camera people. I talked to casting. I talked to everybody, because I wanted to learn about what was really, about production. And so each of those steps led towards Detention. So when I got on I was working on Devil in a Blue Dress, directed by Paul Frank. And I was talking to Jesse Beaton, who was the producer on the film. And I said, Jesse, when do you know you're ready to, step out and make that first feature? And Jesse stood and looked at me. She goes, Darryl, if you're asking the question, you'll probably be ready. And so it's like you take those skill sets and you watch and you learn from these other folks, and you say, I can pull a little bit from here and I can pull it. Because what you also realize is that most directors don't get a chance to watch other directors work. So when we're working, we then create our own sandbox, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a PA, I was able to pull the ideas and the things that I wanted to try to do in my own sandbox. But when we did Detention, I think we got, the thing is about that story and that script is that for 95% of that film, we're in the school.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have to go, seek a lot of permits and permissions and those sort of things. We just had to, because we were isolated inside this one building for, I don't know, what was it, like 12 days? 12 days. Outside of the shoot, with, the beginning of the film, and, in that part of the story, we really were, inside the building. So this is like your classic indie film model of one location.
Mm-hmm.
But we had the run of the entire school. Rose Davis, the principal of the school, Principal Davis gave us the run of the entire school.
Yep.
And
which probably could not happen today again either.
No.
And we were able to leave the sets hot and just walk in some of those days. Yeah. All that was so strategic and worked.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was the thing about it, is that and the thing is, we had built what I like to call cinematic capital at the time. Mm-hmm. We had made, friends and had relationships with folks who had the skills to help us get the film done.
Yes.
And I think had I not worked as a PA, I don't know if we could have done it.
Yeah.
If I was just some guy who just kept, hey, I want to make a movie, but people didn't see me already trying to do it.
Yeah.
I don't think we can do it. I think people saw that, hey, these cats are working at it. They're putting in the time. They are focused. They're not looking at this as just a fly-by-night thing. They're not looking just to be like, oh, they're just trying to be. No, we wanted to tell good stories.
Yes. We were committed to it.
Right. We wanted to tell stories where we saw ourselves on the screen. Uh-huh. And technically with Detention, we literally do, because I'm in the movie.
Yes. Yes, you literally do.
I got, I had more hair back then.
As most of us did. Zero grays.
But, I do, when I look back now, man, it's like, it was a special time, because for us to be able to try to set a goal and pull off doing 2 films in 6 months.
Yes. Yep.
That's pretty bananas. For me, it's like, let people see the work, because I think at this point now, and especially at this time, I think, this is also a story that still, I hopefully holds up today.
Oh yeah, definitely. It does.
And, because we're in a time now where we're hearing about, Black lives. And here's a teacher who's like trying to make a change for young Black lives. Mm-hmm. And, you think about it, like, I mean, how many films have you seen where you had an athlete who just happens to be gay? You still don't see that much now.
Yep.
But that was something that's in this film 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. I remember church groups wanted to, do it, and they were like, well, you don't talk about his being gay as a problem. I say, because it's not a problem. I say, that's who he is. And so for me, it's about, here these images of, these young people in terms of this story. And if we can expose another generation or another group of people to see it, let's let them see it. Mm-hmm. And if, like I said, if people enjoy it and they want to make a donation, cool. If they want to buy a t-shirt, cool. Mm-hmm. But if you like the work, enjoy it, share it, tell other people about it, spread the word. I never expected when we did Detention, like we would win awards,
But you did.
or we did, but it wasn't like that wasn't the goal though. That was the
Yeah.
thing, or I didn't know and expect that it would screen in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
But it did, and and having the film in, with French subtitles, and I was like, what? And and so it's been, that was the experience of, following the film around at different festivals and being able to see that process happen in a way that, it changes you in terms of the work and how you view the world.
Yeah.
And just, in terms of meeting other filmmakers. And that's, like I literally, traveled to different countries because of, Detention.
Yeah. And the film traveled without you a few times, like you said, as well.
Yes, it did. It did. It screened in Australia. It screened in, in different other places where I would have to ship off the print.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And on film. on film.
Yes. And that's the other part of it is it was all on film. Like I had put in, we had a deep freezer of short ends that had been saved that we were using. Plus, I think we were able to still buy some fresh film, but at the same time, the short ends saved us. And
can you tell folks? Can you tell the new generation what short ends are?
Oh, so basically, short ends are when shows shoot on film, they may do a take, but then they realize like they have to cut the film. So if you have a 400-foot roll of film, there may be 200 or 300 feet left on that roll that they may not use. So they'll wrap it, pack it back up, and set it aside. Well, at the end of a show, they may have 1,000 feet of film or more, and they'll sell you that film for pennies on the dollar. And so I would go to the Homicide set and they say, we have some short ends. And I was like, oh, and they would tell me, and I'd go in and I'd get my $100, $200 and get like all this film, and I take it home, put it in the freezer. But they gave me stock that I could use for later, because that frozen film, once it was thawed, it was usable. You could shoot on it. And so
now the caveat with the short ends were the full roll of film at 400 feet was 11 minutes. Right. So if you got a 100-foot roll of film, you basically were shooting for 2.5 minutes or 2.25.
Well, that's the thing is like shooting with film, you had to be, it's truly the thing with saying time is money.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're shooting film, if you're not getting it, you got to say cut. You got to say cut because I can't keep this going. I got to stop. Let's stop. Cut. Mm-hmm. And then let's go again. With digital, you get that hour back.
Uh-huh.
You may lose 15 minutes with maybe replacing a card or something, but that's the thing is like you get more bang for your buck today because of the digital than you do with film, but film still, I think, gives you the best quality.
the 30-year-old debate. What did Spike Lee tell us?
Shoot film. Man, being able to see the events with Spike, and I would even also include in that the Black Filmmaker Foundation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
With Reginald and Wharton.
Yep.
But those guys they helped us to demystify the process.
Yes.
Spike would talk to film students and talk to people about what the process was. Reginald Wharton, they would bring people in and have events so that people could network and could build and understand what filmmaking was at a time when there was that was our social media.
Oh, it absolutely was. That was where we went. So just to frame it in the context, Spike Lee, after he had done She's Gotta Have It in
Gotta have it.
School Days, it was even before School Days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So right after. Yeah, so Spike Lee would have a series of weekend workshops up in Brooklyn, and he would just basically charge $5 or $10 or whatever, and hundreds, sometimes thousands of us would come up there, and he would break down his filmmaking process. He'd have sessions on writing and directing and editing and producing. He'd have his people who did the score and his team there. And for so many of us, especially those of us who didn't go to film school, it was those sessions that broke down the secret processes and techniques of filmmaking. It made them, it demystified them, while concurrently we were meeting people sitting right next to us who had also were drawn by this learning. And you're right, it was social networking built around people who were inspired by filmmaking. And the Hudlin brothers at the Black Filmmakers Foundation, you know, they had screenings, they had special competitions and lectures, everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would go to events in New York, man. Just take a train up, and I would, you know, then I would see Wharton. I say, hey, Wharton, how you doing? And then, you know, but then once, and I would say, yeah, I'm from Baltimore. And they got to the point where I would walk in the room and Wharton look and go, Baltimore.
Yes. And what was dope is that all those mentors were concurrently building their own careers and their own projects. You know, so watching Spike be able to go from School Days all the way, and then I got to work at the premiere of Malcolm X up there, you know, and so just getting to see these folks build their careers and build their portfolios and build their works, seeing them put in the work, we knew how hard they were working to make these things happen. It wasn't magic. And so you've had a lot of success in over the years with crowdfunding for some of your projects. Can you speak a little bit about?
Yeah, you know, I've learned that, you know, and the funny thing, here's the funny thing. I looked at crowdfunding and I was a crowdfunding skeptic before I started. And one of the first campaigns that actually made me even look closer was another filmmaker who actually is from Maryland, is Mike Flanagan, who's a big Hollywood director now. But Mike did his campaign for his film Absentia. And I watched his campaign and I was like, okay, maybe. And, you know, we were acquainted and I reached out and he gave me some pointers on getting my first campaign done. And that was back when we tried to do my thesis film in Japan. And we did that on Indiegogo. And then after that, I did one for the documentary to raise funds to try to keep that documentary moving and going. And so I learned, and that was successful. So I was like, okay, I'm getting this now. And then when we did Stay, we did another crowdfunding campaign, but we did a campaign in Japan, which was a whole nother, because we had to translate everything.
Wow.
And then that one made it. And then just to try to get a little bit more, we did one more in the US for Stay. So I've done 4 campaigns, and I think they were 3.5 successful.
That's great, man.
You know, but what I learned about it is that the key with doing these campaigns is that you have to be organized. You have to. It's great to have a team, but even if you don't, you got to put in the work. You got to put in the time. You got to follow through. You got to make it happen. And you know, and the thing is that I want to finish the documentary because we did that campaign so long ago. I know folks like, and
I mean,
you know, but I'm like,
that's a risk of any crowdfunding campaign. It says it. I mean, even the text in it, you know, it talks about the inherent
right. And the thing is, is like it's called Kickstarter, not Kick Finisher.
That's real.
And the thing is, that campaign helped us to get to a stage where we got all of the footage digitized. We, you know, but the thing is also with that particular campaign, I didn't realize that rewards were going to cost as much as they did.
Yes, I've seen that mistake with a lot of people in terms of how much they pay out.
Right. And so that, you know, so even though we raised X number of dollars, a whole lot of it went to just getting those rewards up, you know, created and shipped out. You almost have to have about maybe 30% in the back pocket in terms of like people that you've reached out before you launch your campaign. Who say, "Oh yeah, I got you." And you got to have that almost in the till before you even launch now.
Just to have, for the social proof of people seeing there's activity on the campaign.
Right. So like if in the first 3-4 days, if you've only hit 10% of your goal in the first 4 days or so, you're going to be pulling teeth trying to push. I mean, because I can tell you now, one of them, I didn't think we were going to make it. And we literally, on one of our campaigns, we got and made our goal within the last hour. And the thing is, I was working and I was on a train going to a job, and I'm like looking, trying to, posting stuff, trying to get, build more. And as I'm looking, I was like, I said, and it got us like to 99%. And I was like, I'm gonna tell y'all now, if we make this, I'm gonna dance on this Shinkansen. And I'm gonna post a video of me dancing on the Shinkansen. And we got it. We reached the top, went a little bit over. I'm on the train, like, posted it. Because the thing is, you say it, you better do it.
Yeah. And plus, plus it's so few places you can go recoup your money from nowadays. At least in the crowdfunding situation, if you're able to keep ownership, generate revenue to help you, and have some folks who are immediately ready to receive your product, that's a nice little loop right there. But the moment someone is expecting equity, thinking that they're going to generate revenue off of you, that's a different sort of pressure and expectation then.
Right. That's like the sister who was it, Michaela Cole?
From
the chewing gum, and I forget the new show that she's got. I Might Destroy You, something like that.
What did she do it during crowdfunding?
No. Well, she had a meeting. I think they said with Netflix, and they offered $1 million for her new show, and she was like, "Well, I want to retain at least 5% of my ownership," and she walked away.
And
they wouldn't give it to her.
And so where did she put the show?
It's on another format, another outlet. So, she walked away because she's like, no, I want to still have some ownership in my intellectual property. And Netflix was like, well, we don't do business like that.
Everybody is now. Netflix pays extraordinarily well, but they own everything. They're investing in co-production.
Right. And maintaining, ownership and control of the work, and being able to, the reason we could even put Detention back out there is because I have the rights to it. I can, it's not a thing of me having to call somebody.
Yes.
And say, oh, is it okay?
Yeah.
If we do this. It's like, no, you called me and you reached out and said, hey, let's try this. I said, let's go for it.
Yeah. And like I was telling, and like I was saying, when we were talking, the idea for me was this. One, I'm watching so many people get rights to old and new stuff tied up by, they sign these distribution deals that don't have any advances, yet they are tying up their rights, and in some cases, they're tying their rights up with companies that they go bankrupt. And now your whole product is out of the loop and not available to be offered to anyone. So if someone wants to do a deal, they're not give you any money. They want exclusive rights, and here's the jacked up thing too. In many cases, they want full rights. They don't want just the streaming rights. They want a right to any derivatives or anything that comes from it. And all of this is happening with no exchange of money,
Right.
And so what I started looking at was saying, well, and then the flip side of that, though, is how many of us made projects in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s or whatever, who have projects that are sitting on our hard drives because we avoided the exploiters in terms of these distribution deals, So we have content. We haven't wanted to put it on YouTube because we want to put cinematic content in a cinematic environment. And the ad money that YouTube is paying at this point is is so small that you have to get mass viewership. Any of the ad-supported stuff, you have to get mass viewership. Then conversely, the subscription pay channels, they're not, people aren't paying for those anymore. You know, people don't want to pay, you know, they'll pay for Netflix, they'll pay for Hulu. But, you know, a few years ago, you could set up a Black and Sexy TV, or you could set up your own little niche channel that people maybe horror, you know, like Shudder, you know, that people would pay a few dollars a month. But that's not the marketplace that we're in now. People want free, you know, ad-supported stuff. So Black Reflections TV, it ties directly. When we met back there in the 90s, I was just wrapping up having published this little magazine called Black Reflections Magazine. And even then, I was curating stories, historical pieces. I was pointing out all the history that was lost to us and things, cultural things, you know. So even then, they call it aggregating now, but I didn't know that's what I was doing. I was aggregating information and things in a paper, in a magazine form. So we launched Black Reflections TV last year with the idea of, one, going back to some of the old classic movies that are out there, some of the old classic Black films that, you know, the ones we grew up watching on VHS, or my grandmother watching, you know, or my father watching, you know, some of these old ones that we heard, you know, I wanted to pull some of them together while also, though, creating a place to showcase some of our old interviews and things like that. So in my mind, Black Reflections is basically a digital bookshelf. It's the ability to take our works, put them out there for the world, ad supported, you know. So if you have a feature that's being released on Amazon or Netflix or Prime, we want people to promote here, to advertise things that are going to be on other streaming platforms. So our value proposition to filmmakers like yourself is, one, it's a digital bookshelf where you could turn it on or off. At the any time that you want to, you can come in here and say, okay, hey, I have a deal with a South African television station who wants to premiere Screen Detention. We can, and here's what's dope though, even with Black Reflection though, we have geo targeting like that ourselves, even within our own network. If we needed to, we can only put a movie up and only show it in the US, or only show it in South Africa. We can only show a movie in Baltimore if we needed to. And only people in Baltimore would be able to see it come up on the website or the Roku, you know. And then so it's the idea of taking these old movies and then us being like Puff Daddy with our own products, us digitally sampling our content. You know, we want to be the Black Turner classic movies, you know. So in the case of Detention, you know, we put a donation button down here, so any of your fans can immediately come make a donation and it go directly to you, right? But we also have the capabilities to create t-shirts, to create mugs, to create other things that could go on this page that could also sell. Or if you had an exactly. So we'll make a Detention shirt and we'll put it up here.
It took 20 years to get to doing my second feature film, which is called Stay, which is a story about a recovering addict in Japan who's trying to move forward in his life. And he meets a woman who helps bring him hope, but she can't stay. So it's a kind of a bittersweet love story set in Tokyo, but it's basically a Japanese film. Because when I read about addiction and recovery in Japan, I realized how much it's a little bit different experience. And so you have to look at it from this perspective, saying, how do I work in this other culture? How do I work in this other world? How do I pay respect to this culture in this world? And how do I find the humanity in this story? And I think, fortunately, we were able to find that in terms of telling the story. And, you know, now it's on Amazon Prime, you know, and, you know, my lead actors, Shogun and Anna Tanaka, you know, were really wonderful to work with.
And so in producing this, what were some of the directing lessons that came out of during Detention that actually helped you when you got ready to do Stay?
Well, I can tell you now that the guerrilla process helped a lot. The handheld, working quickly helped a whole lot because, again, we only had we shot this in 16 days. So we had 4 extra days that we did with Detention.
So 16 days, and how many characters compared to Detention?
Actually, there are less characters, I think, in Stay than there are in Detention.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's basically focused on the 2 main characters, and then there may be about 5 or 6 other characters in the story. So in a way, I'm working with less in terms of like actual speaking roles. But at the same time, I'm also working with some actors who don't actually speak English. So I have to then give direction via an interpreter.
Mm-hmm.
And try to get the understanding of saying, okay, what is the emotional intent of this scene or this moment, and finding the emotion.
Because, and was that through the rehearsal? Like, did you keep a translator on set the whole time, or was it mostly during rehearsal? How was that process?
It was a little bit of both. We had folks who could translate during the rehearsal process, but then on set, my casting director actually helped with, one of our main actors, and because the actor would give us, he had great questions, which is always nice when you have an actor who gives you great questions. And so I wanted to make sure we answered all of his questions because, he could find colors and nuances in this character. And you could see him on the day making choices and decisions in the role as he was like fully present in the role. But that came from those discussions. And, his name is Shimon Ishii, and he's a really, really wonderful actor. And, and Shogun, he came in with, he came to play, our lead actor came to play, and Anna came to play, because she's from the UK. And, but everybody came to play, as I said before, in the sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
And so those skills of shooting quickly helped. We're going to do a watch party, I guess, on Black Reflections.
Yep. So people will be able to watch on blackreflections.tv, but we'll also be streaming some of the watch party to Black Reflections on Facebook and Black Reflections on YouTube.
Right. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to live tweet.
Well, man, look, I definitely look forward to it. July 15th, 5 p.m.
July 15th. Yes, I will be posting this on my socials.
All right. On the Facebook feed and the YouTube feed, we'll start it at 5 p.m. And then for other people, if people don't use Facebook or some people don't like to, they can go to the website at 5 p.m. and start watching it then to get an approximation. And then also there'll be a chat window in the watch party room where people can communicate with you during the watch party and everything like that. And then immediately following the screening, we're going to jump on a quick live streaming session and just take a few Q&A from people in the audience on Facebook. We use the other platforms for social promotion to drive traffic to the destination.
Got you. Yep. All right, we'll work it out.
All right, and we'll definitely.
I'm still learning because I'm still a Luddite. I am a Luddite.
Hey man, partner with some of these young folks. They need our OG wisdom, and they know these tech tools better than any of us.
Oh man, don't get me. Oh, these young cats, man. They taking some stuff to a different level,
as they're supposed to.
But I think that's the thing. Is like, it's the kind of stuff we probably would have done had we had the tech back in the day.
Yes.
And so when you're seeing it now, and you can, it's like, because we've gone from analog to digital.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But to be able to, be in a world where you're digital is all you have to know.
Digital
that gives
first.
That gives you a whole nother level of saying, okay, what can we do with this now? Where can we take this?
But the difference is, it's harder for the most part. It's harder for an auteur to make money doing it nowadays because there's so many people out there creating stuff. If you are willing to work at a certain standard, like a certain production standard, like our training works as a liability to us nowadays in a landscape where someone can become an Instagram star by just turning an iPhone on, no production value except for that iPhone. Whereas we are like, okay, let's write a script. Let's get the best lighting. Let's get the best sound. Let's get this shit edited tight. They're like, no, let me turn that
for this video, I was like, oh, I got to get more light. I got some sunlight. It's cloudy outside.
Yeah.
I know I'm backlit right here.
Hey, all in this Instagram era, you know, I see people with 3-5 million. They're not worrying about none of that shit.
Hold up, watch this. I even was like this. I said, should I put on a gel? He's like, put on a gel.
No, they make it easy now. You get a ring light, one ring light, put your phone in the middle, and you can dial your colors right on that ring light.
Yeah, well, I ain't got that yet.
All right, well, remember the foil? Remember we take the cardboard and put the foil and make the reflector? Yeah. So, but it's 2020 and we are still here. Thank you, God.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. So, all right, bro. God bless, man.
You too, man.